fans, and welcome here as we continue on Speed Weeks. As we get one step closer to the Great American Race Daytona 500 for the second season of the NNSCRA Hersheys Cup Series. Getting ready here today now for our two Can-Am duels, and this will determine the final 6 drivers that will race their way into this season's Great American Race. 3 drivers will race their way in here in this first Can-Am duel. 3 drivers will transfer their way in with where they finish in the second Can-Am duel. Now, the reason that there are only 3 and 3 is because James McLeod claimed one of the 7 available spots by qualifying for the outside of the front row. He'll also be the pole sitter for our second Can-Am duel. Our Daytona 500 pole sitter, who topped the leaderboard in qualifying, is starting on the pole for this first Can-Am duel. That's Joshua Michaels in the Aspen Dental Chevrolet out of Rage Motorsports. Now, his goal today is to basically just keep the car clean. It doesn't matter if he finishes dead last in this race. As long as he doesn't have to go to a backup car, he will start on the pole position for the Great American Race. For all these other drivers, some of them, they're fighting for the best starting spot in the Great American Race because they're a chartered team. They're going to make the field no matter what, but there are a number of drivers, including the driver who is starting the outside of the front row for this first duel, Noah Cars, former winner from last season at Martinsville. Now, he has to race his way in by finishing in one of the top 3 spots by a non-chartered driver. So, let's get ready to go here. Now, if you look through this field, you got a whole bunch of non-chartered cars that are starting up here near the front, the 96 of Noah Cars. You look back and you see in 5th place, that's Austin Mongold in the 95. You've got row 4 comprised of non-chartered cars, actually rows 4 and 5. Davey Johnson, Kat Tellier, O'Neal Baldwin, Garrett Sidner. They want to race their way in. All they've got to do is finish top 3 of the highest non-chartered cars in this Can-Am duel. If you are the 4th highest finishing non-chartered car, you're going home and having to try again next week at Rocky Name UK. Let's get the command now to fire them up.
Drivers, start your engines!
There is the command to fire up these engines. 31 cars in both duels. And we're about ready to turn them loose here in this first duel. This is not going to be a very long race, so not a whole lot of time for drivers that qualified near the rear of the field to make their way up to the front. So they're going to have to make the most of what they've got. Joshua Michaels and Noah Cars starting on the front row, but this is the kind of Daytona where it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have a really good run. This is the kind of a racetrack where the suck-up is big time, and that could play a huge factor into how soon drivers that are starting near the rear of the field will be making their way up towards the front. And I'm not really certain, but I think I've got something with my options incorrect here. I do. Yep. Alright, hold on. We'll be right back for the green. Alright, we are back. I realized that it was only showing back as far as the row Anthony McCrory was in, and I knew there were more drivers back behind that. Now, what happened was, for those of you that don't know, my game actually did reset itself this past weekend. And so I had to go back, I had to get all the cars, I had to do all that kind of stuff, and it reset everything in my game, all my settings and everything. So my drawing distance was not correct. I just fixed it. Now you'll actually be able to see the full 31 cars in this field, because I thought for a moment, I went in, I edited the way they're going to start up in this lineup. What's going on? So here we go. These drivers lined up according to where they were in the qualifying session. If they were an odd-numbered driver, they're starting here in duel number 1. And Joshua Michaels will lead them down here to the green flag. 10 laps of racing. Here we go. We're underway in Can-Am duel number 1. Last thing a lot of these drivers want to see, especially the chartered drivers, is a wreck. They don't want to be involved in the big one, have to go to a backup car and start at the rear of the field for the Daytona 500. There comes Rocco Twyman in the 19. Now he's trying to go underneath of Noah Cars. Now Noah Cars, for him, Rocco Twyman is not a threat, but the 95 behind him of Austin Mongold is. That's the battle for the number 1 spot for a non-chartered team right now between the 95 and the 96. No, actually, Rocco Twyman is a battle as well. He's a non-chartered car, so My apologies on that. So the 1995-96 all battling for the number one spot right now, the number one transfer spot. And Noah Cars with the outside lines going to go out to the lead. Looks like Joshua Michaels trying to bail here, get out of dodge. And oh, I don't like the way they're racing back here. This is awfully tight through the tri-oval, which is one of the trouble spots of this racetrack. Michaels is just hoping everybody goes on by him and saying, you guys go race. I'm just going to ride around here. I want to keep my pole position for the Daytona 500. Got John Arndt right behind him, and I'm certain that Arndt will make the move to the inside momentarily. Right now, non-chartered cars hold the top three spots. Noah Cars, Austin Mongold, Davey Johnson. They would be the ones to transfer. There you see Austin LaPlante. Now, remember, just a couple of days ago, there was an error where LaPlante actually is now a chartered ride. Holden Gluba is not. So LaPlante's actually racing to start on the inside of row 2 for the Great American Race now. He's got Benjamin Miles pushing him there. Right now, top 2 spots for non-chartered cars held by the leader, Noah Cars. Second place, Austin Mongold. The battle is on for the third transfer spot, 3 wide, between the 88 of Sidner, the 46 of Johnson, and the 19 of Rocco Twyman. Again, really racy up at the front, but the battle is really on for the transfer positions for these drivers that are non-chartered machines. So far, we're still green flag racing. Can't say the racing's been clean, though. They've been all over the place 3 wide all through this field. And there you see Noah Cars, who was leading just a moments ago. He's lost the lead. They're 4 wide! Oh, please settle it. Please, please. They're going to wreck. 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 There's no way. There's no way. Oh, but maybe there is. Oh, there was a way. They made it through. Holy cow. Battle's on for the lead. That's 2 non-chartered cars. Garrett Sidner in the 88. Austin Mongold in the 95 now is going to lose that position. And here comes Noah Cars trying to take it from him. Dylan Young on the bottom. James Qualls. And look at Joshua Michaels. I guess he doesn't really care about the fact that he could wreck and end up losing his pole position. He's trying to win this duel. Right now, the 3 transfer drivers for non-chartered cars would be Garrett Sidner in the 88, Noah Cars in the 96, Austin Mongold in the 95. Next battle for that spot would be the 19 of Rocco Twyman. Then you got to go a ways back before you get to the 46 of Davey Johnson and the 35 of Cat Tellier. Got Keith Batson, Matthew Dallio back there, Joshua Circuli, who, by the way, I was notified does not have an R in his name, so unfortunately it is going to show up that way, I believe, until the Daytona 500. Then I'll make the change. Garrett Sidner in the 88, still leading this thing. If he wins this race, he starts 3rd place for the Great American Race. And he'll be making his Hersheys Cup Series debut in a points-paying event. It's still Sidner, then Noah Cars, and then Austin Mongold, right now hanging on to that final transfer spot for the non-charter car. It's in a 3-wide situation with Leon Alvarez, Benjamin Miles, Austin LaPlante in that mix. The car that he has to worry about is that 19 of Rocco Twyman, right now scored in 10th place. Mongold currently hanging on to 3rd. Keith Batson now moving by Davey Johnson. That would be for the 5th position of the non-chartered cars. Also, keep an eye there on Ryan Madden, that number 8 car. He's a teammate to the 48 of Austin LaPlante. What if those two will work together? 6 laps complete. We're on to lap 7. And there are a number of drivers who have lost touch with the front of the field already that are non-chartered cars. They may be out of this thing. Joshua Circuli losing the lead pack. So is Elijah Gordon, Seth Cole. There's Aaron Henderson. He's a non-chartered car. Stephanie Gardner way back here. O'Neal Baldwin as well. JT Bryant lost the draft, but he's a chartered machine. Oh, and Zachary Stultz, who started near the rear of the field. I think he started dead last. That's where he's still running, 31st place. So doesn't look like Zachary will be making the Daytona 500. Back up front, Garrett Sidner continues to lead, and I think Noah Cars is more than content to ride behind him because both of them know that if they run right where they are, finish the race right where they are, they're both transferring into the Great American Race. Austin Mongold has now found his way down to the bottom, looking in his rearview mirror. Still the car that has to try and catch him is that 19 of Rocco Twyman, and he's got a lot of distance to make up, a lot of machines in front of him between himself and Austin Mongold. Mongold right now in a hornet's nest, though. Leon Alvarez to the outside line. Benjamin Miles thought about splitting 3 wide. Mongold going to block the inside line. Hang on to the spot, at least for now. They are 3 wide, about 2-3 rows back from 3rd position back to probably around 10th place, I'd say. And now where things get really interesting, because there's 2 laps to go. Look at Garrett Sidner and Noah Kars. They've got a strategy worked out. 2-car tandeming at the front of the field, trying to stay ahead, keep their hopes alive for making the Daytona 500. Oh, Mongold got loose through that corner as he slid up the racetrack and opens the door for Benjamin Miles and John Hart to forge a hold of the inside. And look who else is getting to that inside line. Here comes that 19 of Rocco Twyman. We still may have a battle for a transfer spot into the Great American Race. Twyman now has moved to the middle groove. He's got Dylan Young there with him. He's trying to get alongside the 95 of Mongold. That would be the battle for the final transfer spot here in the first Can-Am duel. White flag displayed. 1 more lap to go. It is Garrett Sidner leading. Noah Kars in second. These two have not stepped out of line with each other in the last 3 or 4 laps. They have one main goal. That's to make the Daytona 500, but they may have company. Here comes Ryan Madden in the U.S. Army Chevrolet. He's going to break this duo up. And Rocco Twyman has now gotten by Austin Mongold for the final transfer position. Ryan Madden trying all by his lonesome to win this Gatorade duel, or this Can-Am duel, I should say. Here he comes to the bottom. Side by side with Garrett Sidner. Here they come out of the final corner. Side by side. Sidner up high, Madden down low. It'll be a drag race to the line. Who wins it? Photo finish. Ryan Madden wins. And the 3 transfer drivers will be Sidner in the 88, Kars in the 96. Rocco Twyman gets the final transfer spot, finishing 5th in the 19. It looked like Stephanie Gardner had to make some kind of unscheduled pit stop in the closing stages, and Ryan Madden will be starting on the inside of row number 2 behind pole sitter Joshua Michaels for the Great American Race. Sidner will start 5th, Arndt will start 7th, and Noah Kars will start in 9th. Race is complete. Standings are official. There you go. Your 3 transfer drivers for the non-chartered machines finish in 2nd, 4th, and 5th. Sidner, Kars, and Twyman. So officially the drivers that will not take part in this season's Daytona 500 include Austin Mongold, Davey Johnson, Keith Batson, Kat Tellier, Matthew Dallio, Joshua Circuli, Seth Cole, Elijah Gordon, Aaron Henderson, O'Neill Balvin, Stephanie Gardner, and Zachary Stultz. They will all have to try and qualify into next week's race at Rockingham, UK. So, Ryan Madden wins, and you can see Joshua Michaels did survive. He finished 16th, so he still maintains his pole position for the Daytona 500. It's time now to find out what the outside line of the Great American Race is going to look like and who our final 3 transfer drivers will be. Let's get ready now for Can-Am Duel number 2. So now it's time for Can-Am Duel number 2, where the drivers who qualified in the even numbers will be taking part in this event. James McLeod, who was 2nd fastest, qualified on the outside of the front row for the 500s on the pole. Let's get the command.
Drivers, start your engines!
And he will start alongside of Trent Dunham, who would have been 4th fastest in our knockout qualifying session yesterday. Field rolling off. I missed the 50. Where is the 51? There he is. So you can see here a couple of drivers that are non-chartered cars starting up near the front. You got the 17 there of John Andrews. Got a lot of chartered cars though up here closer to the front that I can see. Now James McLeod is the only non-chartered car when we take the green flag that already has locked himself into the 500 in this Can-Am duel. That's why we have 3 drivers transferring from the first Can-Am duel and 3 here from this second Can-Am duel, because McLeod has taken one of those spots. If we had had another driver besides Joshua Michaels, a non-chartered car, qualify on the pole position for the 500, we would have had either 3 drivers transfer in Duel 1, 2 drivers in Duel 2, or 3 drivers in Duel 2, 2 drivers in Duel 1, depending on when I flipped a coin or something. That's how it would have been determined. So I'm trying to look here, see who the highest starters for non-chartered cars are, and looks like the closest ones right now would be John Andrews in 3rd, Zach Rogers in 7th, and Marie Manobi in the 93. I think she's starting in 10th, either 10th or 12th. 12th place. So a lot more of the chartered cars in this field. So we'll have to keep an eye, and it looks like Maria Manobi is going to actually be the final driver when we take the green flag. That would be in the 3rd transfer spot, so we'll very quickly jump back there once we get green. Drivers that she'll be looking out for: Dougie Shears, Pichu London, Holden Gloob I see back there, so we'll keep tabs on it as James McLeod leads us down. 10 laps of racing await us in the 2nd Can-Am duel, and it is underway. We are green. We got away with no wrecks in the first Can-Am duel. The field definitely spread out, that's for sure, but we didn't have the caution flag come out. And also, you'll notice that in this field, you won't see him just yet, but when you see the number 15 Aaron's car, it's a Chevy. Yes, I did remember to finally change William Brock's Toyota to a Chevrolet. Yay me. Zach Rogers there on the inside line in the 39, so now he moves into the number 1 slot for the non-chartered cars. John Andrews has lost a ton of ground. As a matter of fact, he's lost 2nd and 3rd place for the non-chartered cars. Right now, Marie Manobi would hold 2nd spot. Holden Gluba holds the 3rd spot, but here comes Nathan Hudson on the outside line. He's a non-chartered car, trying to battle for a transfer position, as Tim Walsh is checked out on the field. This is the battle for the 2nd spot between Gluba and Manobi. Manobi now loses it. Now Manobi falls back to the 3rd position, and now we'll lose that to Kyle Keith in the 42. So right now Kyle Keith would be in the 500. Jason Haywood right now also in this mix. John Cittadino up close here. And the 83, he started this race from dead last. Also the 84 of Joe Rockingham's up there, as well as the 20 of Marty Johnson. Now, right now, the 3 transfer spots would be Gluba, Rogers, and Keith. But Rogers is now caught in the middle line. And if the 72 goes by him, Jason Haywood would then be in the 3rd and final transfer slot. Gluba right now in the 1st transfer slot. Keith is in the 2nd one. Rogers in the 3rd one, hoping the middle line continues to move, and Gluba actually jumps up there to help the middle line. Meanwhile, top 3 are Tim Walsh, James McLeod, Jake Baskiger, all drivers with charters. Matter of fact, the top 5 are all chartered cars: Emmanuel Hartnett and Trent Dunham. That time, if it had been the finish, your 3 transfer drivers would have been Kyle Keith, Holden Gluba, and Jason Haywood by a splitter over Zach Rogers. Comes the 18 of Cole Baker. Now, his teammate Seth Cole did not make the 500 in his dual race. Cole Baker's a chartered car, so he will be in the 500 regardless of where he finishes this. And a couple of drivers have lost touch with the lead pack already. Joseph Srigley in the 05. Now, he is a chartered car, so he doesn't have to worry. But another car that I saw lost the draft was John Andrews, who's had a very fast Ford this entire Speed Weeks. And they are 4 wide, and they're wrecking. Flickager's around. Haywood's involved. Kyle Keith. A lot of your chartered cars are in this. Gluba, Rogers, Kyle Matthews, Sanford flies in, along with John Andrews. There's William Brock involved, Johnny Gardner, Cole Baker, and the caution flag is out. They were 4 wide coming off of 4. This time they couldn't settle it out. The yellow flag waving, I believe they took it, and Joseph Srigley, who was running at the tail end of the field, has engine damage now. The engine has blown on his machine, black smoke erupting. Now, he is a chartered machine, but this definitely spells out backup car for the Daytona 500. They did indeed take the caution. And after all that, who are our transfer drivers? It would be... Let me see. Is Richardson a chartered car? I have to look real quick. I'm sorry. He is. So it would be Joe Rockingham right now in the first transfer position, Marty Johnson in the second one, and then Holden Gluba in the third transfer slot as things stand right now. So we're under caution for the first time today in our second Can-Am duel, just around the midway point. We will get back green, so let's take a look at a replay of what happened. Well, as we're looking here from the exit of turn 4, Cole Baker was the one that was basically stuck in the 4-wide situation. And let's see where the contact begins. Right there, a little bit of contact with Kyle Matthews. I think then he clipped William Brock, sent Brock down into Zach Flickinger. There you see Kyle Keith and Jason Haywood. Then Matthews squeezes Rogers up into the wall. Look at the avoidance there by the 11 of Richardson. Nicely done. Look at Joe Rockingham split the gap. And Dylan Poteet nearly hits Holden Gluba. And look at everybody scattered to the bottom trying to avoid. And then here comes some other drivers in. I bet that 17 and 05 maybe didn't even slow down. Oh, and then there's a shot to the driver's side door. Nathan Hudson into Charles Sanford. There you see Cole Baker sliding in, Johnny Gardner sliding in. And it was just on from there, and everybody just trying to woe up, but very little reaction time and very little maneuverability for drivers to be able to get through. So this should set us up for a very interesting shootout here to find out who's going to make it into the Great American Race. Right now, Tim Walsh, with where he's running, he would start on the outside of row 2 for the Daytona 500, but it ain't over yet. And it will be a green-white checker finish to cap off this Can-Am duel. Tim Walsh leading, Jake Baskiger second, James McLeod third, Emmanuel Hartnett fourth, Trent Dunham in fifth, James Richardson in sixth. Top 6 are chartered machines, and it's interesting too, only one driver out of the race, Joseph Srigley in the 05. Now this says to me that there's one of two things. One, if they're a chartered car, they don't want to have to go to a backup car by retiring from this race. 2, if you're a non-chartered car, you don't want to retire from this race just in case maybe a wreck happens and you can slip by and maybe get into that third and final transfer slot into the Great American Race. So everybody's still with a chance. Joseph Srigley, the only one to go to the garage area. We'll see him in the Daytona 500, but he will be starting at the rear of the field, undoubtedly going to have to go to a backup machine. So we gave you from first on back through 6. Let's go back further. Joe Rockingham, right now in transfer spot number 1, is in 7th. Dylan Poteet 8th. Transfer spot number 2 would be Marty Johnson, and his teammate Holden Gluba would be in transfer spot number 3. Then you got Dougie Shears. Now he is a non-chartered car. He wants to get by Gluba or Marty Johnson. He'll restart 11th. Michael Norman 12th. Another non-chartered car in 13th in Pichu London. John Andrews still there in 14th. Another non-chartered machine. Charles Sanford in 15th. 16th, non-chartered Nathan Hudson. William Brock 17th. 18th, Chris Dowd. 19th, Dallas McIntosh. Daniel Voiles 20th. John Cittadino, a non-chartered car in 21st. 22nd, another non-chartered car in Kyle Keith. Then you got Kyle Matthews, Cole Baker, Zach Rogers starting way back here now after getting involved in that wreck. He's 25th. Johnny Gardner, Jason Haywood, Marie Minobi, Zach Flickinger, and Grayson Acavito. That is your 30-car field. Only one driver out of the race. Green-white checkered. Here we go. Green flag is out. Now we're going to be focusing more on the battle between Marty Johnson, Holden Gluba, and Dougie Shears than we are on the battle for the win, because it's all about making the Great American Race Daytona 500. And we already actually have a battle going on for that final transfer spot. Dougie Shears jumped up to the high side against Holden Gluba. And right now, with the swing off of turn 2, he is in the final transfer position. And look at this, they're all together. The 84 of Rockingham, the 20 of Marty Johnson, the 21 of Dougie Shears. Here comes Pichu London, the 29 into the mix. It's like right now it's going to be 4 drivers to settle it out for 3 spots in the Great American Race, as Tim Walsh again has checked out on the rest of the field. The white flag will be displayed this time. They're 3 wide for second. Dunham, McLeod, and Baskiger. This tie by at the line. Dougie Shears noses it out. Right now he would have the final transfer spot. It's Rockingham, Marty Johnson, Dougie Shears, Pichu London. Who's going to transfer into the Daytona 500? Tim Walsh has checked out in first. Baskiger checks out in second. Oh, look at Pichu London. Try to get the run on the inside line. They're getting squirrely out of turn 2 down the back straightaway. Holden Gluba still has a shot if they end up wrecking up here. Catching onto the tail end of this group. Right now, Rockingham holds the first spot. Then it's Marty Johnson, London side by side with Dougie Shears coming out of turn number 4. Who's going to get it? Tim Walsh is going to win. Baskinger second. Who gets the transfer spot? London, Shears to the stripe. Dougie Shears just bests Pichu London by a splitter and will join Marty Johnson and Joe Rockingham in the Daytona 500 for Season 2. 2/100ths of a second was what Dougie Shears beat Pichu London by. And Tim Walsh will start on the outside of the front of the second row behind James McLeod for the Great American Race. Baskinger will start in 6th place. Emmanuel Hartnett will start in 8th. And Joe Rockingham will start in 10th in his debut in the Hersheys Cup Series. Literally a couple of inches denies Pichu London a chance at racing in the Daytona 500. He will fail to qualify along with Holden Gluba, Nathan Hudson, Kyle Keith, John Cittadino. Oh wait, no, I'm sorry. Cittadino is a chartered car. My apologies. So it would be, let me start again. London, Gluba, Hudson, Zach Rogers, John Andrews, Marie Minobi, Jason Haywood, and that would be it. Those are the only drivers in this group that failed to qualify for the Daytona 500. So we have our 6 drivers that transfer in now that will take part in this season's Great American Race along with James McLeod. So we know our entire field for this race. Looks like only one driver will be going to a backup car, that being Joseph Srigley out of the 42 drivers that have qualified for the race. So your top 2 rows for the Daytona 500 look like this. Joshua Michaels will start on the pole. James McLeod will start in 2nd. Can-Am Duel number 1 winner Ryan Madden will start in 3rd. And Can-Am Duel number 2 winner Tim Walsh will start in 4th place. Thank you all so much for watching. Coming up next, we'll show you the full results of what it will look like for your starting lineup for the Great American Race. Next up on the schedule is going to be our final happy hour session where you'll get to see these drivers put the finishing touches on their machines, the 42 cars that have raced their way into this season's Great American Race. Thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you guys next time as you've been watching a production of the NNSCRA Offline Racing at its best.